Hey everyone, this is Landon from SB Act. I'm the Director of Programs here, and I wanted to go ahead and record a presentation that we shared yesterday at the all-call meeting. We weren't able to record the meeting itself due to some audio limitations in the room, but I wanted to make sure we could share what was presented yesterday. So without further ado, this is kind of the culmination of a lot of work that's being done throughout South County with a lot of different homelessness providers. So first, I just wanted to note there are some people that showed up to the meeting just wondering how they can address homelessness or report homelessness in their neighborhood. There are specific guides for the cities of Goleta, the city of Santa Barbara, and for just South County in general. I will share links to those along with this presentation so that you know exactly how you can report homelessness issues so that they get addressed and so that people get connected to the services that they need. I did just want to mention at the outset that this is a part of a broader strategy. So our county has what's called a continuum of care. So this is a government body that is mandated by the federal government, typically for a county, to address homelessness. So it's every single service provider that's working on the issue is a part of that continuum of care together. So our county's continuum of care has a strategic plan that they are actively carrying out. Um, they also maintain the coordinated entry system, which is the way that people experiencing homelessness can get connected to any different service provider by just going to one of them. So they could show up to the rescue mission, for example, in the city of Santa Barbara, and they would still be able to get connected to the other services throughout Santa Barbara County that they might need. And that's done partly through the county hosting what's called a homelessness management information system, HMIS, which is really our database of everyone who's experiencing homelessness throughout the county. So in doing this, we're able to really keep track of everybody and help connect them to the services they need. You can see here just some of the county's 5-year goals through our continuum of care. I'm not going to go in depth into this, but just suffice to say that there's a lot that's being worked on at a higher level. So that's at our county-wide level. Today we will be talking mostly just about South Santa Barbara County, meaning Goleta through Carpinteria. And so that's going to be the focus of the Act on Homelessness Collaborative, which is a project of SB Act. So I'll be talking about that in a minute. But since the meeting yesterday focused in Goleta, it was actually hosted in Goleta, I wanted to briefly mention that the city of Goleta has a homelessness services coordinator, Chuck, who is a great contact for anyone who has any questions related to homelessness locally in that area. There is, in fact, a homelessness response directory specific to the city of Goleta that I mentioned earlier. I will link to it when I share these slides out. Okay, but as it comes to South County, so as I mentioned, this is a part of the Act on Homelessness Collaborative, and we were focused on this whole region south of the Santa Ynez Mountains. So this is a project that's been going on since 2020. We've had a couple of different iterations. It really started as just a focus on the city of Santa Barbara, and then in 2023 expanded to focus on the entire South County region. I will encourage you throughout the presentation to visit our website, sbact.org/AOH. That's a great way to just learn more, view our goals, read some of the previous reports, and find ways to take action. So you can see we have a steering committee comprised of a lot of different sectors in South County. We have a lot of government agencies. The cities of Carpinteria, Santa Barbara, and Goleta are all involved, as well as the county of Santa Barbara. We also have all the housing authorities, law enforcement. We've got a lot of nonprofit organizations. You can see in orange. In yellow, some of our business leaders. In green, some philanthropic leaders. And then in blue, we do have individuals with experience of homelessness that sit on the steering committee as well. So this is the group that really makes all the decisions for this particular South County collaborative and the group that's helped devise these goals that we'll be talking about. So this has been a process for us to get here. We started in June 2024 by developing a survey that we administer to community members and stakeholders to just try and get a sense of what we should be focusing on for our next 3-year cycle. And that's come to a head in March of this year when we finally launched our new 3-year strategic plan. So this will be going through December of 2027. So here you can see our 4 3-year strategic plan goals through the end of 2027. I'm not going to go into a lot of depth here, but I did want to just share briefly that we tried to focus on 4 different key areas. One is prevention of homelessness. One is assisting people who are currently homeless. One is trying to solve for homelessness, like for people who are already housed to make sure that they stay housed, because this is a consistent issue throughout Santa Barbara County, is that we have people that fall back into homelessness. And then supporting and undergirding. We realize that we need political will if we want to make any significant impacts to homelessness. And so we want to try and build up our community support from the broader community. So you'll note that there's a few things that are not included here. The biggest one of all is housing. Housing is not a part of our current 3-year strategic plan. That is a longer term goal of our county. And it's certainly something that all of our cities are focused on with their housing plans that they've had to develop for the state. But it's not a part of this strategic plan. We think that it will be likely a part of our next strategic plan cycle because this is a big part of solving for homelessness. So you're going to see these colors and these symbols on future pages of this slideshow. And so just a note that that is a reference to you, so you'll know that, hey, we're talking about data related to one of these goals. Um, you'll also see it with some of the action items later, so you'll know that there's ways you can contribute for each of these different goals. Okay, so I wanted to really get into some data today. That's a big part of this presentation, was just to start getting everyone up to speed on what we know about homelessness in Santa Barbara County right now. So many of you are familiar with the point in time count. So this is a federally mandated count that happens most winters in Santa Barbara County, where we do a 1 day count of people experiencing homelessness throughout the county. So it's not a perfect measure because any given day you might have more or less than the maybe the average of that year. However, it does give us a general sense of broad trends in homelessness. And so you can see on this chart on the left, there's a couple different kinds of homelessness that are measured. You've got in green the people that are unsheltered, so out on the streets, in the parks, etc. You've got in the white bars the vehicular homelessness, people sleeping in their cars. And then you've got the blue, which is people sleeping in shelters. So you can see the general trend is an increase over time. And so this is just something that we are well aware of within our county. You can see on the right side that by city, this has been an increase since 2021. Some of this is due to some of the COVID eviction protections going away. Some of this due to rapid inflation, kind of a variety of reasons, but definitely part of a statewide trend. Similarly, we are seeing increases in sheltered homelessness. This actually is a good thing because that means that more people are actually in shelters than previously. And this is partly due to the fact that we actually have more shelters than we had previously. For example, the Hedges House of Hope shelter in Isla Vista opened just in the last 2 years, and the La Posada cabins opened in Nolita just last year. And so these have all provided new opportunities for people to get off the streets and indoors. So thanks to that, our unsheltered population has actually decreased. However, our vehicular homelessness has grown significantly. And this is a trend that we're seeing statewide. We're partly attributing it to rising rents and people deciding it's actually just more cost effective for them to live in their vehicles. But it certainly has an impact on our community. And we know that many people came to the meeting yesterday specifically because of that concern. So I just wanted to note that and say that that is something that we're going to be talking about in future slides. And it's something that our community is uh, really intent on figuring out. Our county is actually not going to do a point in time count in 2026, and instead is going to host a focused data collection process about vehicular homelessness in our county. We really want to understand more about this population, where they're coming from, demographics, so that we can better address the issue. All right, so that's just the broad level trends I wanted to point out here. So now let's talk about some of the data that we've collected as a part of our strategic plan. So you may recall that our second goal, I'm skipping over our first goal, but our second goal is related to trying to assist some of the people with the most complex behavioral health needs. We've created a list of the top 100 individuals in South County with complex behavioral health needs. And this was created with the help of city staff, with the help of all the homeless outreach agencies, with the help of law enforcement, We had a series of criteria, including maybe it could be mental health diagnosis or substance use diagnosis, or it could be related to someone who gets a lot of police calls due to their activities. So we've created this list of the top 100 individuals. You can see in that pie chart on the left side that they're spread out throughout the different parts of South Santa Barbara County. It's not perfectly proportionate to the actual populations within those cities, but it's somewhat proportional. And so we tried to make that so that it wasn't heavily favoring one area over another. And a couple of really interesting things that we want to note, and it's going to affect our work with these populations. Number one is that right pie chart. So you can see that about 50% of the people are currently enrolled in a housing assistance program. So that means they have a case manager, they're actively working towards housing goals. The other 50% are not. So this is something that we are tracking really closely because we want to get those people moving towards housing or towards shelter, towards something so that we can help them get off the streets. It is interesting to note that of those who are enrolled with the housing assistance program, there are 12 that are enrolled with PATH. Now, if you've been following the news at all, you would know that PATH is currently in flux. It's looking to be purchased by the city of Santa Barbara, and there's going to be a new service provider there starting in January. So we are hopeful that everything will work out and that these individuals will be able to remain in PATH, but we're also just keeping an eye because it is a big transition and transitions can be hard, especially for people with significant behavioral health challenges. So you can see some of the other breakdowns of other organizations that are working with these individuals. But really, our goal over the next several months is going to be to keep pushing more individuals towards the services that they need. Then I want to talk a little bit about goal number three, which is focused on trying to reduce the number of people that return to homelessness. So, relative to our neighboring counties, Santa Barbara County has a relatively high percentage of people that return to homelessness again once they get housed. So you can see for South Santa Barbara County, our baseline is there's an average of about 49 people per year that return to homelessness once they've finally gotten housed. And that's all within 1 year of getting housed. This can be a really challenging transition for a lot of people for a variety of reasons. Trauma that they've encountered on the streets, other concerns, maybe losing connection to the community that they've built on the streets, a whole variety of reasons people end up becoming homeless again and re-entering our system. I do want to be clear, this isn't a perfect measure. 49 is not a perfect count because this doesn't measure the people who actually become homeless again in other counties. We definitely have people who might lose their housing in Santa Barbara County and then they resurface, let's say, in Los Angeles County. But we're not aware of them because they're not in our county anymore, so they're not showing up in our system. So there are likely more than this, but this is kind of the baseline average we have to work off of. Our goal is going to be to try and reduce this number to 37 or fewer in a 1 year span. So we're going to be working on that through the end of 2027. I did want to note that you may have heard about some of the supportive housing developments that have come up, such as Buena Tierra in Goleta, which was the former Super 8 motel, Veracruz Village in the city of Santa Barbara near Dune Coffee on Anacapa. These are all projects that have supportive services attached. So once someone moves in, they get extra help, you connect it with the case manager, et cetera. For these individuals that are returning to housing or to homelessness, most likely these are not individuals that were living in those developments. 90% of these individuals were individuals who lived in either they'd gotten into a private apartment situation with maybe a housing voucher, or maybe they moved in with a family member or a friend. Only 10% of these individuals had actually been in the housing situation that had the supportive services. So I think that what that does tell us is that the supportive services are really key for people to succeed in housing. And it does also mean that if we know someone is moving into a setting where they're not going to have supportive services, we really need to figure out how we can still support that individual over the long term so they don't end up back on the streets. I also want to talk briefly about our goal number four. I thought this was really interesting. We've been working on administering a survey to a lot of our community leaders throughout South Santa Barbara County, specifically our elected officials, our city council members, and the county board of supervisors who are in South County. Our business leaders, specifically the board members of organizations like Visit Santa Barbara, the South Coast Chamber of Commerce, Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, etc. Um, Philanthropic leaders, so leaders of the foundations in town that are listed through the Foundation Roundtable or the Nonprofit Resource Network in Santa Barbara. And then also HOA board members. And we've been trying to survey them using this survey called the Attitudes Towards Homelessness Inventory. So it's created by Clemson University researchers, and it gets a sense of how people understand the issue of homelessness. Now, it's not necessarily how they feel about homelessness. The title of the survey might be misleading to some, but it does get a sense of do they believe homelessness is more of a personal issue? Do they believe it's more of a structural issue? Do they themselves feel connected to people experiencing homelessness? Um, and so this is what we've administered. We've had 108 of our community leaders respond. We feel good about this. We had an 85% response rate from our elected officials, 60% response rate from our business leaders, and a 70% response rate from our philanthropic organization leaders. So we have a fairly representative sample of those three groups. For HOA board members, we didn't have a large sample, so I'm not including that here, but they are included in the total 108. We're still hoping to keep collecting some surveys so we can get that broader sample of HOA board members. Within that, we also collected some demographic information that you'll see reflected on the next slides, but I do just want to talk about what kind of scores we saw. So on a whole, the baseline that we collected was a score of 3.88 on average. Now, this is on a scale from 1 to 7, so this is less than 50%, you could say. We really want to try and increase these scores. We want people to better understand the issue of homelessness. We want them to feel more personally connected to it. We want them to believe there are solutions that they can work towards, etc. So our goal is going to be that 20% increase, getting up to 4.66. And then a couple of other trends that I wanted to point out. The lowest scores were around that area of affiliation. So people who feel personally connected to people experiencing homelessness. Some of the survey questions about this were like, I would feel comfortable eating a meal with someone experiencing homelessness, or I feel scared when I see someone experiencing homelessness, or I could see how I could become homeless myself. Um, so this was our weakest score for our community leaders. And this is really something we're going to want to hone in on throughout this strategy is how do we help people in our community to have a better personal connection to this issue and to people who are experiencing homelessness. I will say our elected officials had the highest scores across the board. So the strongest sense of connection, the strongest sense of solutions for this issue, strongest sense of understanding of how this issue works. Um, Interestingly, higher age was correlated with lower scores. Our lowest score group was ages 55 to 64. And then just to note that the people who filled out the survey who indicated that they were renters in South Santa Barbara County tended to have higher scores than those who indicated they were homeowners. There may be something to this. You could read into it. Maybe it's that renters are more personally connected to this issue than those who own homes. But I think we're still trying to parse that out. So there's a lot to take away from this, and I think it speaks a lot to what some of our strategies may be moving forward. So we did do some group discussion today. I encourage you to think about to you what stands out the most from these findings and have a conversation with someone about this. We really need to have this conversation as a community. And so I encourage you to keep that going. Reach out to us too if you have questions. But I have a few more things I wanted to share today. So there are several strategies that we are working on as a collaborative. These are at a higher level, and so I'm not going to go too much in depth with this, but know that there are a lot of ways that the county and our government agencies and all of the service providers are working together to try and address each of these different issue areas. However, there are also strategies that you can help us with. I put the QR code there again in the website, sbac.org/AOH. You can click there to actually sign up to participate in one of these. But there's several different strategies to undertake, and I'm going to highlight just a couple that are kind of emergent. Okay, so number one, I mentioned that we have this high percentage of people in our county who return to homelessness, 49 people per year in South Santa Barbara County specifically. We want to host a community discussion about how we can address that as neighbors. So not on a technical level, but just is there a way that we can try and figure out ways to band together to help people who may have just recently moved into housing? Are there ways that we can support our neighbors? Are there ways that we can create community teams to help people once they move into housing, maybe give rides, maybe provide care packages. There may be ways to involve faith communities in this, et cetera. So we just kind of want to have that discussion together with community members and figure out what might be possible here. That's number one. If you go to the website, you'll see a link to click on that will allow you to kind of sign up to maybe join that meeting. We don't have dates for these meetings yet, too. I'll just say that. So the link will actually take you to a poll so we can find a time to meet. Number two is to attend a discussion with the community about advocacy. So the question is, how do we change these narratives about homelessness? How do we help people feel more personally connected to the issue? How do we advocate for actual solutions to our local leaders? So we want to talk with community members about this and kind of hear ideas or thoughts on what it would mean to actually sort of change the way that our broader community talks about and thinks about homelessness. I also wanted to offer some just general options for people to get involved. Maybe you're feeling like, hey, this is an issue I'm just not familiar with yet. I'd like to understand more. We encourage you to join a Homelessness 101 training. We'll be hosting a training on Thursday, October 23rd at noon on Zoom. This is a great way to just orient yourself to homelessness in South Santa Barbara County, learn a little bit more about what our demographics look like, and also kind of how we got here today. And then finally, there is an advocacy opportunity coming up very soon. The Goleta City Council on October 7th will be discussing vehicular homelessness and specifically how to enforce issues related to encampments in the city of Goleta. So there's a lot of discussion about this, a lot of concern because there are growing vehicular encampments in various regions throughout Goleta and frankly throughout all of South Santa Barbara County and all the state. But it's coming to a head at the Goleta City Council. So we want to invite you to attend, share your thoughts with Goleta City Council about how this issue should be addressed and how we can kind of respond compassionately together. I also just wanted to mention we do have these regional action plan wrap meetings focused on specific neighborhoods throughout South County that you can attend. These happen on a bi-weekly to monthly basis so that you can learn more about the issues. And also just if you have an issue in that specific neighborhood that you want to bring up, you'll have law enforcement there, you'll have service providers there, different people who might be able to help address whatever issues you're facing related to homelessness. So I encourage you to attend those. There is more information again on that website, sbac.org/AOH. And then finally, our next large group meeting will be on Zoom. We won't be in person for that one, but that'll be December 8th at noon. So with that, I want to say thank you. I appreciate taking your time just to listen to this and learn a little bit more about the issue. I encourage you to share your feedback with us by using this QR code. We have a little survey there just so we can continue to improve what we do. But please do visit sbac.org/AOH, and I'll share this along with some other links with this presentation. Feel free to reach out with any questions and grateful for your time.